allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As is our tradition, if you could just join me in a moment of silence for men and women in uniform. We'll call this meeting to order at 2 minutes after 6. First thing we'd like to do is invite Mr. Perry Ellsworth. Come on up here. Former town manager of town of Rangeley. You have something for somebody.
Yeah, I'm president of the Maine Town and City Managers Association this year, and one of the things that I think I've done pretty well with the last couple of years, I recommended that John give you a call anyway, so that he's one of the best people I know. He's got strong integrity, lots of respect. He has the respect of all of his associates. So I'd like to present him with a lifetime membership plaque. To the Maine Town and City Managers, this is what he will be able to stay on the listserv that we have, stay in association with the rest of the managers that he's worked with all of his life. All I can say is God bless you.
Started in 1978. Been around a few years, so it's about lived some of the people.
Were you born then? 78?
78, I was born.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Perry. Thank you very much. Congratulations, John.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're all proud of you. Anything you'd like to say about it, John, before we move on?
Well, I was, when I got to Rumford was a much bigger town, and I was able to, because of that, able to get involved in the Maine Town and City Managers and the Maine Municipal Association. It was quite a rewarding part of my career. I actually became the president of the Maine Municipal Association, so it was a real highlight. So, people like Perry and other managers that some of you have met, like Dick Davies from Farmington, David Cole from Carabasset. These are real good people. Very good. So I've had some really close friends in the association. And I tried to retire 3 years ago, and Perry wouldn't let me when he called me up after the legislature adjourned. He called me up, he says, would you be interested in being Rangeley's interim manager? And at the time I said, well, I'm not doing anything till January if I get reelected, so sure. That's how I wound up there, and of course I didn't get reelected, so I'm still here a year and a quarter later. So.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, John. Under adjustments to the agenda, there's one more airport surplus. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, old runway lights being removed to replace them, and we need you to pass a motion allowing us to sell them. We're looking into what a realistic value would be, and there's been a couple of people already interested in them for smaller airports. We can do that under number 6. And then the other, you probably list there is that for you to take any action as a result of what you heard in public hearings.
Yeah, we'll put that under number 8, old business, first item on that agenda. Thank you. Could I have a motion for August 19th regular meeting?
Chairman, I make a motion we approve the regular meeting minutes for August 19, 2019 with any corrections or additions.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 29th?
Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the special meeting minutes for August 29, 2019, with any corrections or additions.
Second.
Any changes? All in favor? Thank you. Public to speak with non-agenda items. Non-agenda items. Yes, Mr. Shaver.
Chairman, I'd like just clarification. A couple of weeks ago, I was approached at the Rangeley transfer station to sign a petition, and I understand there was also a petition circulation down at the post office, which is public property. Are there any limitations or restrictions from any petitions of any kind being signed on town property? I know that you can't publicize any kind of candidates for office and that kind of thing. I was just wondering if that's appropriate to circulate petitions on our town property.
Good question. I don't know the answer to you.
I've seen ordinances like that or policies where they prohibit town employees from doing anything.
Not a town employee, but someone else
Someone
circulating,
else.
anyone circulating the money.
I don't know of anything that we have that would prohibit that, but I do know where I vote at the Legion Hall in Rumford, there's usually 3 or 4 tables set up with people collecting signatures for instance. And that's a town
I would-
election, so.
But
I would think as long as the town employees weren't involved, they were just, people who just happened to be there and were, but the town employees, Gary, weren't.
No.
Okay. I think if the town employees weren't doing anything about it, I don't think there's a problem.
There's an issue.
you had,
Yeah, I've dealt with petitions for many, many years, and I've never seen a law that says that petitions have to be signed on private property.
okay, thank you. Anything else on the public to speak? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Nothing under boards and committees. Let's start with consent items. Liquor license for Moose Alley, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the liquor license renewal application for Moose Alley Operations LLC, doing business as Moose Alley.
Second.
I saw everything was in order. Anybody catch anything? All in favor? Thank you. Hungry Trout.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the liquor license renewal for Hungry Trout, Inc., doing business as Hungry Trout Grill and Bar.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? Everything there? Yeah. Very good. All in favor? Town office reserve, computer upgrades to Windows. Tell me about why we're spending so much money on Windows.
As of January 1st, Windows 7 will no longer be supported with updates, and in order for a lot of our systems, such as Trio, which is our property tax system, and all of your stuff, it won't work properly.
Right,
So
right, I understand.
we're just trying to bring it up to speed so that we can maintain continuity in business and system.
I'm sure it's occurred to others besides me, but are we just throwing money away here because in 6 months something else will say, this just seems to be the way these things go. Is there an operating system out there we should be looking at that takes us into the,
I think Windows 10 is the one that people go to. Windows is supported. That's, this happens every few years.
Yep.
They
Right.
upgrade and things go away. I don't think it will cost nearly that much, but trying up to $4,000 would cover anything that come up in happenstance. For instance, we come to find out he's gonna need a new computer because his one computer he's got won't support it. There's little things like that are going to kind of come up or that I have to address.
questions? Bonnie? Ethan? Need a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure of up to $4,000 from the town office reserve for computer upgrades to Windows 10.
Second. All set? All in favor? Thank you. Fire Department Reserve, Rescue 2, $75,000 from Article C5 at the last town meeting, and $25,000 from reserve account to purchase a new rescue, which you've got pictures of, and they've whittled them down from $120,000 to $100,000. I did hear from a firefighter EMT that this was the rate to get, that you got a good deal ahead of you. Fire department want to make a presentation on it, or just let it go at this?
Answer any questions you may have. So
Yep.
I guess we can talk a little bit about it. It's a little bit longer than the current rescue we have. It's about 5 feet longer. It has a lot more storage in it. It has several upgrades to what we're running now. Currently, we have a cascade system which fills our air bottles. It's an older system. It runs at 4,500 PSI. The system on this new truck would be 6,000 PSI. Since we got Rescue 2, Tim Pellerin put a grant in there for our air packs, which are upgraded air packs, which run at 4,500 PSI. So this new cascade system would be compatible with it. So hopefully I'm not going too fast. The hydraulic system that's on this rescue can operate from the truck for extrication equipment. Currently, on our current Rescue 2, we're running portable hydraulic pumps. So this new rescue runs off a PTO-driven hydraulic pump, which is a little bit more powerful, and we don't have to worry about starting a generator when we get there. We can run 4 tools at once, where we can only run 1 tool at once currently. And then, other than that, it has a light tower on it. That's something we don't have now to light up a scene at night. Other than that, I'll answer any questions you may have. It has a stainless steel body.
Ethan?
It sounds like it's got everything you want, and it falls within budget, correct? That's
Correct.
where we're at. I remember I had had a conversation with you a month or so ago, and a lot of things you're talking about that it has, you had mentioned to me,
Right.
you were in need of, and that's great. The one thing you did say to me was that the current truck was too large, and you were hoping to get a smaller unit. Does everything in this truck, does it outweigh that one part that wasn't what you wanted?
Well, so we've increased our capacity, like what we can do as a department. We now have stabilization struts for anything from a small vehicle up to an 18-wheeler, which we do not have room on the current rescue for. And I think when we originally were thinking about this, we looked for something that could get on some of the back roads. But since then, we've put Truck 2 in service, which was the old Chief's truck down at Station 2, where we can do a lot of back road stuff. We can throw our ropes and rescue and tackling on for that. This truck here, this is going to be a support piece. We don't plan on taking this in the backwoods, so it's going to be remaining on the roads. I don't know what you call it, proper parking areas, you know. We don't plan on taking it on like any of the wilderness rescues that we have in the past.
So you don't find the extra size of this truck isn't going to limit your
No,
capabilities?
the extra size is actually going to allow us to put all our equipment that we need on it and become an official utility truck. For example, right now we have the Rescue Alive sled, which lives at Station 2. We don't have any place for it. We would be able to put it onto this truck. We'd be able to put the new stabilization jacks we have on this truck, and it would give us a little bit more room to grow as a department too.
One thing too, Ethan, this one might be a little longer, but the center of gravity is lower. So it's
Yeah, I
actually,
noticed
it's
that.
getting us down. When someone has to drive that truck 75% of the time. The current one is extremely top heavy. In the winter, no one wants to get in it.
I knew both of you had really good answers, I just wanted to ask the question.
Appreciate that.
You had a question?
No, actually, it was the same question Ethan had, because I do remember the discussion during budget time about the need to replace the heavy with the light, but it sounds like you have found an answer to your problem.
Yeah, we've talked about it as a truck committee. We formed a truck committee within the department. We looked at 12 rigs from small to large, looked at the equipment we have now, what we're gonna need to house it, and this is where we landed.
Thank you.
Chris had a question here.
Yeah, I'll get to it.
Okay, sorry.
You have anything, Tony?
Did this come from the same place we got another truck
Yes.
several years ago?
Yeah, that's.
They cover this national forest or something like that? I don't know.
We did purchase a truck from there. I'm not sure if it was engine 2 or engine 3.
Yep.
But that was also part of the reason we were able to negotiate the price down a little bit, because we are a returning buyer. They're also gonna deliver it with your approval. They'll deliver it. It comes with a 12-month unlimited mile warranty. And the one thing I would like to ask the board, which is not in my notes, I would like to send Scott from Northeast Fire Apparatus up. He inspects vehicles, and kind of looks out for town's interest. He'll go and look at the fluid levels. He'll test the fluid to see if there's any metallic or anything like that in it. He'll also look over the truck from suspension to engine. That costs about $800 to $1,500 more, but I think it protects our investment. And that's also something I would like to throw in there so we can make sure our money goes the distance it needs
So let's say it's $1,500, where are you taking the money out of?
I would like to ask that for reserve, but I did not put that on the proposal, so I can take that out of our budget if we needed to.
Well, work it out with John, but we're gonna have an identifier where it's gonna come from, so.
Okay.
I think a pre-buy is always a good idea.
Well, I'd like to protect our investment
Absolutely.
into this as much as possible.
Yeah, I was actually under the assumption that somebody already gone and looked at it and picked this
I
thing
did.
out.
I went and looked at it. I crawled under, but you know what? I'm not a mechanic. I can look for rust. I can look for obvious signs of damage. I can tell that they maintained it. It had, new oil filters on it, and stuff like that. There was no rust. But once again, I'm not a mechanic. I drove it. It drove nicely. I inspected all the compartments. I inspected the cascade system. I pointed out a few issues that the truck had that they're going to correct. Some cascade system valves needed to be replaced. Once again, I'd like to have somebody go and take a
Oh, I
look
don't
at it.
disagree with the pre-buy. I think it makes some sense. Mr. Farmer, you had your hand up.
Yeah, last time we got a really good deal. I remember we bought a ladder truck a few years back, and I just like to just make sure that a couple things are thought about as we're doing the purchase with this. One is a clear definition of what the maintenance schedule is and stuff like that, because I believe we had an issue with plug filter and a couple other things that happened with that other vehicle, that we make sure that we've got those precautions in and have a routine maintenance schedule figured out, and if the delta is going to affect the budget of what the normal maintenance is compared to what you were spending on the previous vehicle.
The previous vehicle, the Rescue 2 that's down there now, the truck was built in 1988, but it's a 1999 Volvo, where we're running into problems with parts aren't made anymore. Last year, as a stopgap to get it through inspection, we had to have a piece machine tool. But as far as maintenance, hopefully by that time, the town will have a mechanic. We do have a fire engine mechanic that comes up to Rangeley, and we do go through monthly inspections on all of them.
Okay, because I remember that, am I wrong, if my memory serves me correct, but wasn't there an issue with the filter got plugged?
That
Part
I'm
of that
not,
combo?
it was a generator filter, so it was something that came up on normal maintenance.
Well, it was, from what I understand, was a contributing factor to what happened when we had to replace the other,
Well,
an overheating problem. It was a new vehicle to our fleet,
Yeah.
so I just want to make sure that we learn from our previous challenges, that
Well,
we can avoid that, that's all.
I think if you come down to my office anytime you see that everything is pretty well maintained and taken care of with our department, so I want to make sure.
I'm not challenging that one
Okay.
bit, sir. I'm just saying that it was an oversight that nobody anticipated or saw, and it somehow got missed, and I'm just saying, it might be worth having that conversation when you're purchasing, that if there was a previous maintenance records or schedule for those items, so we can avoid a plug filter or something like that and have to spend $160,000.
I think what we could probably do with Northeast Fire Apparatus going out to look at the rig, they're going to be the ones that are most knowledgeable about it, and we can probably get suggestions.
Yeah, I
from
think your
them.
pre-buy will answer that. Dennis?
Yeah, in the last few years, the trucks that we bought, most of them were bought from, down in South Carolina, and they're a reputable outfit. The one truck we did buy, one tower, an E1, we bought from another town. We didn't have that inspected. This one here, we're having inspected, and just in case you don't know, the Scott Lake guy of Northeast Fire Equipment, he is a principal in Auburn, and they maintain most all of the in Central Maine fire trucks around. So this guy knows what he's doing. He'll give us good inspection. If there's something that's not right, he'll call us. And $1,500 is definitely worth it for $400,000 vehicle. This truck is a little bigger than one we have, but we need it for all the equipment that we have. And you were talking about, there was some discussions before about the department going in a different route of separating our equipment, putting on smaller vehicles, and then using that so we can get into the backwoods. Well, we looked at our records and our backwoods calls, though they are somewhat numerous, they're not the primary calls. And so to take all our equipment and spread it up on around to 4 or 5 smaller vehicles, and then and do that did make sense. The thing that made sense was put everything on one vehicle, and then we'll take a small vehicle, take this equipment specific off it for the call at the staging area, and then we can go in the backwoods with the pickup truck. So that's why we like to keep all the rescue equipment on one vehicle. So, because there's a lot of things that went into the process thinking of that, and the truck committee spent a lot of time and went over a lot of things. The only thing that's tough to find is that finding the right truck is what you want. The day that you find the one you want on the thing, if you're not ready to call up that day and get a check, you lose it because they go very fast. And we've lost 3 or 4 trucks in our time just going through our process here. It's 3 or 4 nice trucks.
You have a binder on this one?
Well, we have a verbal, because we've purchased with them before, they're holding it until the selectmen reach their decision.
Any other questions for the chief or the fire crew?
One more,
Yeah.
Yes.
what kind of life are you hoping to get out of this truck?
So, we look at NFPA standards 1901. They recommend 25 to 30 years. This truck is in really good condition, so if we maintain it and keep it up, we might get 15 years out of it. But it's hard to say.
I understand you can't predict the future, but I think the taxpayers probably like the answer that you just
The
gave.
current truck, by the time we retire, will have 31 years of service. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
This truck new is probably close to $500,000.
Yeah, oh, I know.
You know, with equipment that's on it. This does not have a pump on it, so it doesn't require a yearly pump test. It doesn't have hose on it, so it doesn't require a yearly hose test. It's mandated for carrying the rest of the equipment.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you taking another truck out of?
Yes, we're taking Rescue 2 out of service, at which point we'll approach the board and how to put it out for bid.
Any- Wait, I need 2 motions. Let's do the
Thank you.
pre-buy motion first. Well, the reason I say that, just so that we're clear, we'll authorize the pre-buy at up to $1,500, and then your next motion contingent on the pre-buy's successful look-through. I don't want to give them $100,000.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we authorize the fire chief to spend $1,500 to have this 1999 KME heavy rescue vehicle checked out by Northeast
Fire Apparatus.
Fire Apparatus. And then I will make a motion.
Okay, that's the first motion.
I'm
We got a
sorry.
second?
Yep.
Donnie and Cindy, any discussion on the $1,500 expenditure? All in favor? Okay, got you $1,500. Right, Donnie.
Okay, make a motion, we authorize fire chief to purchase a 1999 KME heavy rescue vehicle for $100,000, $75,000 coming out of capital vehicles, Article C5, and the rest coming out, the $25,000 coming out of the reserve account.
Second?
Donnie and Ethan. Contingent upon? And make it contingent upon the pre-buy success?
Contingent upon the pre-buy success of
Thank you.
the inspection.
Any more discussion?
Of course. We're not gonna
All
buy
in
it
favor?
if it doesn't pass.
So moved. Okay, next. We good? Next is ribbon cutting ceremony, which will be September, we're still on for the 21st?
At 10 a.m.
Yep, at 10 a.m. Love to have you all show up for that. It's exciting. Rebecca needs $500 out of petty cash for it. She asked me to bid on this. If I'd known she was going to get $500 for hors d'oeuvres, I'd have bid. But
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve $500 out of airport reserve for the ribbon cutting ceremony.
second. Cindy and Ethan, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Any correspondence from?
Lights, airport lights, I think is added, right?
Oh, runway sale, yeah, runway lights next. Excuse me.
I'll make a motion that we approve the sale of the Stephen Bean Municipal Airport runway lights that were removed for the current runway extension project.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Questions? All set? All in favor? Thank you. Old business. Excuse me, I have nothing under correspondence, unless you have something. Ethan?
Nope.
All right. Thank you. Let's go to, start with the Patton property first, Tom Patton's property on Bald Mountain Road. We heard all of the testimony given to us at the public hearing. Prior to that, what say you, colleagues of mine?
I don't think 90 days is outrageous. I mean, he was looking at, I mean, what he dealt with over the winter with the caved-in buildings. It went from what he perceived as a restoration project to now a demo project. He's made progress on the demo part of it, has it fenced in. I don't see the harm in giving him another 30 days.
You say 30 or 90?
I'm saying 90. I mean, the suggestion was 30 to 60, right, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that 90 being absolute completion? Buildings down,
That's what he's asking
all
for.
materials are removed, place looks like a grass lot,
Well,
is that
I
what
mean,
we're saying?
well, with the potential to save that 10,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
12 by 8.
12 by 8, yeah.
You'll have to look at that.
Yeah, so that would be that would be what would remain.
Okay, because I know, I mean, there may be a difference between lumber down and stacked up and lumber down and removed.
Yes, we have talked about that in the past, if he's able to sell them some of that lumber, stack it, put it under a tarp or something,
Sure.
I think everybody has a real problem with that. It's just
Nope. No, I just wanted to know specifically what it meant.
Do you have any thoughts?
I just think it needs to come down. I mean, I don't see, you can slap all the plywood you want on it, but it's still.
He's doing the demo now.
I
we talking
understand
about
that, but he
building?
was talking about keeping part of the building, and I'm just.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think, well, it's contingent on Tom's approval, I think, and that small part, correct?
Yes, I'm not sure how sound it is, I'd have to take a look at that once the connection get visibility on it.
Yep. Remember, just want you to be sure you are aware of this. If we give 90 days on one,
absolutely.
you're looking at 90 days on the other, because you're setting a precedent today,
I agree.
all right? I don't think, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So you might want to reconsider that thought process. Hang on, Mr. Schaefer.
I already thought of that.
I think they're different scenarios. They both have made different progress at different timelines on their property. So I'm just looking up information on the Shamshine property.
Yep.
So I don't mean to be rude, but I'm just checking on the status of the
Tom?
mortgage.
Yes, one more time. I think you had said earlier, hypothetically, if this board says 30 days to be done with it, they have an opportunity to ask for another 60 after that, correct?
Correct. If they're making good progress and everything looks good, I would put that toward you in the report.
Right.
But if I thought it was proper, I would definitely throw that question.
So there wouldn't be a need for a public hearing again, whatnot, in
No.
order to
No,
issue an
but-
extension?
Because the order states that
He can give them.
I have the discretion to give an additional 60 days.
So if we do 60, that would be
Okay.
potentially 120 days.
As you said before, smack in the middle of winter.
And if he is making good progress, okay. But if he's not, then we still have some teeth to it. It's up to you guys, but I think 60 would be better.
I'll go with 60 with the possibility of an extension.
Each one of them have a possibility of extension here regardless of what number we pick. That is the correct
At
statement.
his discretion.
Okay. So, Joe? My initial thought, and kind of I'm leaning towards it, and I know Tom's going to bristle, but my initial thought, because of the extension potential, 30 days is what I was prepared to say today. Because we have some life safety issues, and I know Tom has been real diligent about putting a fence around there. There's no question he has gone to some expense to secure this thing. but we have two situations we have to think about. And unfortunately, you're in the mix of these two. And you had said, and I wrote it down, you had hoped to be done possibly in 45 days. So I'm going to make an offer. If you need a machine and an operator, I'm being serious, you call me. I'll come over and we'll make it safe. But if your idea is to pull every 2x4 out, Tom, you're going to need some help. I'm sorry. You're going to need some help.
Well, that made good, can I respond?
I'm watching you. I've been watching you every day because I've got those same neighbors calling me.
Yeah,
Yep.
And I know now of another neighbor, so.
Yep.
What I said in terms of 45 days was that it might be down in 45 days. The reason I asked for 90
Yep.
was my best estimation of what the maximum.
I wouldn't blame you for asking for 90 days. Yeah.
You know, what you just described, there's
Yep.
the normal process, you know, I could possibly have 120, but I want to get it done before snow flies.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
But the only thing I'd say is I am not pulling every 2x4 out, but I'm pulling every one that's worth saving out. But that still is within the time frame I suggested. So.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
In addition to what Steve just said, that having pretty good knowledge of the construction industry, I think you could probably pull large sections of your building down and still be able to save them, and they'd be on the ground and safe. And I think, and I don't want to speak for him, I think that's what the chairman's trying to say.
If that's acceptable, I mean, I may want to save 20 feet of wall framing. And I've discussed that with Tom, and that falls under the category of on the ground and tarp as appropriate.
Right.
I mean, if that's acceptable, that's fine. And frankly, that would be a hell of a lot easier than dismantling the entire
Sure would.
wall system.
And safer for you. All right, what do you think? What do you want to do?
Good with 60.
Well, 30 and 60 is 90.
Ty just nailed his math.
Give me a motion, what you want to do.
Well, my thinking is if they're making progress in 30 days, then give them the 60 days. If they're not, then we have another problem.
So he needs a motion.
You got a question?
Yeah.
Oh, Gary.
Just a point of clarification, is this for 75 Ball Mountain Road, or as it says on your handout, 74 Ball Mountain Road?
Yeah, there is a typo there.
There's a little bit of discrepancy. So when you state your motion, make sure it's accurate to the address.
Yeah, I think the other one.
Are you 74 or 75, Mr. Penn?
You know, I can't remember. My wife is
75, I
70,
believe.
no, 74. Odds are on the other side.
There you go.
On the other side.
Yeah, you're
Which
70.
one is the wrong, Evens are on the left.
It's got the green number 74.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Besides the days, the time frame, what are we specifying in the motion?
Are we just dating the findings of the findings and order for dangerous buildings? We need days?
It would be best if you could finish this right now by putting in the number of days you're going to allow in the order.
Okay.
And then I've got the 30-day period between, 30 days would be October 9th, and 60 days would be November 8th.
I believe you can do it this way, that we authorize Tom up to 60 days.
It says
Gotta read
within.
it.
So it's already pre-printed.
Yeah.
So we just insert 60. So basically, we just need a motion that the findings in order for dangerous buildings located at 74 Mountain Road, Bald Mountain Road, thank you,
Yeah. Go ahead.
be completed within 60 days of the date of this order,
Starting today, the 9th of
which is
September.
dated September 9th, 2019.
Okay.
I need a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded for 60 days. Any more discussion? All in favor? There you go, Tom.
Thank you.
60 days. You're welcome. I won't say his name correctly. Shamosian?
Shamshoyan.
Okay, thank you. Property. What's your pleasure on that one? Let me just start off by saying, this room was filled with people
Yeah.
that have had enough of life safety issues on that property.
I think we need to consult with legal first. I mean, if there is a bona fide mortgage on this property, how do we handle it? I mean, we can't,
I don't know that, that's an issue. I would think the mortgage company might want to get involved in this. If they have, especially if they have a big mortgage. They
Yeah.
have to lose it.
Go ahead, Tom.
You can wait.
So I've got some.
Hold on, guys, hold on. Go ahead, Tom.
I have some information from the bank foreclosure action. I talked to the attorney that was involved in that action.
good.
And he was, I got all the notes, I can pass them on to you, because I know you got a background in being able to look those things up, probably more efficiently than I do, but anyway, so he said that, yeah, and I don't know who paid the note, I looked for other mortgages, that was the only one that came up. I talked to the women at Registry of Deeds as well,
Yeah.
and the reason they said that was still shown as active was because the bank never actually took the action, so for some weird reason, it never got deactivated within the registry deed system. But he confirmed twice with me over a number of period of months separation that, between the two times I spoke with him, that, Key Bank has no interest in that property, all that bill was paid off by somebody, so.
Hmm.
I'm not aware of any other bank things.
It just, well, it's, the foreclosure's never been discharged. I mean, yeah, and it doesn't show a refinance of record.
Yeah, they never
But he
actually-
claims, he's disclosing he has a mortgage, which
I'm not sure if he was.
just don't want any liability, that's
I'm
all.
not sure if he was correct about that, but
You know, it's
I
just
just wondered.
where the mortgage isn't
He says
discharged.
refinance.
Trish is a good,
My judgment, Cindy, is that the fact that the building's dangerous and needs to be dealt with as soon as possible, that would take precedent over whatever mortgage. That's just my thought.
it's just a matter of liability. I mean, I don't want it to come back on the town that we get sued for removing property owned by Key Bank, you know, because that is, you cannot alter or remove property, you know.
We posted a public hearing and they could have come and said something about it too, so we have that going for us.
It's, yep.
But if you want to-
But-
Look, just make the motion contingent on the finance, finding out the disposition of this existing mortgage, if there isn't one, or one that this gentleman feels he has to satisfy, maybe that's the issue. It's right there, is that he thinks there's a mortgage when he hasn't made any payments on it, and they've internally discharged it within their books. That could certainly be something that we don't know about. But we're gonna make a decision on how much time is allotted to him, contingent upon you finding out that the deed is clear to do such a thing.
It might be good for us to use
Well,
Goodwin City.
the fire chief's gonna walk over there and say, this thing is unsafe, he's got a right to tear this thing down tomorrow. So there's no question about that. And all you gotta do is put him in the building and you're covered.
There is a section of the statutes that allows the town to go ahead and take action on that, go to court and get the deed in order to do that as well. Based on the safety.
I think we heard it loud and clear that the neighborhood has had enough. And I don't think we should go one day further without.
All right.
Go ahead.
With that said, I make a motion to approve this findings in order for dangerous buildings at the property at 35 Hotel Road to be removed within 60 days, contingent on legal, making sure that everything's on the up and up with this mortgage.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Nice job.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Good work. Latest road estimates discussion. Keith, you the man.
I got nothing new for you from last time, honestly. You know, those are the numbers that were brought forward to you this morning, this afternoon. I submitted a couple of paving contracts to hopefully minuscule in that number, but lighten the load for this year. Did a surface paving on Lake Street and Fuller Street. And other than that, I did speak with Mark Hume in regards to the Loon Lake Road. Per his statement right now, I'm waiting for written confirmation, but his statement verbally over the phone was he encouraged the town to apply for another MPI grant in 2021 for the cost of the drainage work, stating that he's never seen an MPI get denied. Not that he could guarantee it, but he's never seen one get denied. And I asked him a question in regards to if the project was finished, could that become a retro payment? And he confirmed it. So we could get that
Okay.
$400,000 back.
Yeah.
On completion.
You said 400?
That's just a rough number right now. Whatever that number was for Loon Lake Road drainage.
All right.
I say 400,000, it's actually three something, but I don't want to give you exact. I'll have it in front of me.
Okay.
So depending on the actual cost of the drainage too, here's our estimate, but once we figure out the actual cost of that drainage, might be a little more applicable to that.
John?
This is just FYI right now, because obviously the best job would be the Loon Lake Road would include the sidewalks and the curbing in under the road drainage. We've got three different estimates there. Complete done would estimated at $2,685,000 for 6280, and with the MPI and the Northern Borders grant, we have $1 million to subtract from that. So we're still likely to spend $1,685,000 if we go that route. The next option would be with a curb and under enclosed drainage, $2,552,587. And then the third option is with open ditches, no under-road culverts or drainage. So that's $2,237,600. So we have $1 million to subtract from either one of those. The other thing to keep in mind would be on the amendment number 2, change order number 2 to the current airport project. They're going to buy the remaining quantities of fill from Chick Hill. And that was approved at $442,200. So that's additional to the almost $600,000 they're going to give us initially. And that $442,200 can be used for anything. That's provided all, they use all that extra material that they've given us an amendment or a supplemental agreement change order. One source of funding. We're really looking at, with all the roads that need to be completed, realistically, $3 million to finish all these roads, and that's on top of the $1 million grant for Loon Lake Road, the 80% grant for the sidewalk coming from IGA down the hill, the $190,000 grants for those 2 new bridge culverts on Bald Mountain Road. That's still got, our share of the remainder of that is $408,000. So what I'm looking at right now is total estimate on all the remaining roads, $5,600,000. We have $1 million from the grants. We still have $1,311,000 from the original $2.1 million bond, so loan. And I would see any way around that. If we borrowed $3 million more, we'd be able to finish Moon Lake Road, the Overlook Sidewalk, Allen Street and Bald Mountain Road with the available revenue we have now. But then there are these other roads, Cottage Avenue, Guile Road, Hyatt Road, Pickford Road, Transfer Station Road, Bonnie Point Road. These are all small amounts of money compared to the, 2 or 3 million obviously. That totals roughly $280,000 for those roads. But those can be done mostly with our highway crew over a couple, 3 years. We reported last time that we had that the loan payment that we currently have is $248,848 a year, for 10 years till April 2028. And the excise tax collected over the last 4 years is $337,000. So there's about $89,000 additional excise tax and what's been allocated to pay that. In the last 2 years, the town passed a motion at town meeting to transfer all excise tax revenue to the road reserve account. So that money is already approved by the town to spend. It just might take a little longer. You still have to borrow $3 million to make it 10 million. So that's something you gotta concern with. So my recommendation is we ask that to the townspeople at either November or I hate to wait till spring because my recommendation would be to go through the main bond bank. When I borrowed there before, I was told from my local bankers over there that they couldn't compete with the main bond bank. That's entirely up to you. I know you didn't do that route before. We did it on, I think, the park loan with the main bond bank.
Yeah, that was a bond. I would rather see our current construction loan get paid off as soon as possible with all of the excise money. I mean, to borrow more money and not plan, I do not want to see this on the November ballot. There's not enough public time to discuss. And our taxes have already gone up significantly over the past 3 years. I think that there could definitely be some more careful consideration than just say, let's borrow more money. You can't prepay a bond.
The town borrowed money to be based on these roads, so that says to me, I wasn't here, but it says to me that the town approved this road reconstruction plan, and it was seriously underfunded. Maybe not at the time when it was first approved, but the cost of everything is skyrocketing.
Absolutely.
So, you might want to look at some of the roads, go out and drive on them and see what's needed. But we've got Bald Mountain Road partially done, and we've got $190,000 in grants. How could we not finish that one? We gotta finish that one. We've got, on Allen Street, all that the money available will allow us is up the school street.
And maybe we need a workshop just solely dedicated to this, because we don't have time at this meeting to go into it, but I am not ready to just say, sure, let's just put out a $3 million or $2 million bond out for vote in November.
People need to know, these are based on the latest bids that we had on Allen Street, as far as use of cost and quantities and everything else. So these,
It's unfortunate.
these cost a lot of money, but what's the cost if we don't do them?
So the next meeting is the 23rd, is that correct? So do you want to do a workshop on the 23rd, so we don't run this out too far?
Yeah, let's do that.
You good with that?
Like,
Yeah, I'll have some.
Ethan, you good with that?
Yes.
So at the beginning of the meeting of the 23rd, we'll do a workshop for,
We'll do 5 o'clock?
yeah, 5 o'clock.
Sure.
Yeah. You good with that? Yes, Chris?
I would strongly advise dusting off the minutes from when we discussed this all back before, because when we originally went to borrow the money for this, there was much a discussion about that this work needed to be done in a short period of time because costs were going to escalate. True, I guess we ran into some problems there, but these discussions were had and things were recorded at the minutes. I would advise looking at those and looking at those pieces, and I think.
Okay, let me just ask you this, to what end?
To what end?
Correct. I
Because.
mean, we've had a change of a town manager, we've had changes of the board. We can go back and say, yes, the minutes reflect this, we don't have the money now. The issue is, what do we do?
Right, and part of what was discussed at that part was, are we borrowing enough money to do this whole project in one shot? Those pieces, the point is that you're gonna be revisiting this again in 3 or 5 years unless you come up with a comprehensive 15 or 20-year plan to deal with a regular revolving of what needs to be done. I believe I even recommended at me, I can't quote me on that, but I recommended looking at getting what I call the revolver loan or something. So as you paid it down, you had some ability to go and tap it again without messing up your amortization of what you had built in. The goal was originally to pay the debt service off the excise tax.
Yep.
And so and you're always gonna have this problem. It's main roads have to be fixed. So I would suggest maybe also having some citizens involved in your workshop initiative and get a committee and get it settled.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem is two roads are gonna eat up most of this $3 million. Allen Street and Loon Lake Road. Then we've got every other road in town, so.
Right. Allen Street was
I
the
mean,
issue from the
the more you
beginning.
stop to think about this, the more expensive it's gonna get.
Thank you.
This is a perfect example. I forgot what the original thing for Allen Street was, but
700,000?
yeah, it's doubled. So,
No, it's more than double. The highest one.
it's $1.6 million, but,
Macadam's tied to the.
but still, my point is that the longer we wait to do this, the more expensive it's gonna get.
John?
Just one thing to keep in mind is that our hands were tied because of the grants that we had applied for. Just a month ago, we got the Northern Borders grant. That was the second time we applied. So you have to do that because it's $500,000. You can't turn your nose up at $500,000. And then on Allen Street, the water district just got their grant money from the rural water.
They got their finance.
And that just came in this year, and the culverts for Bald Mountain, we just got, those awards, we applied for that last year, and they were, they have too many people applying for this stuff. So this year, we got both culverts funded at $95,000 each, so that money is well worth the extra time it took, but nobody expected the prices to go up this year.
Yep, go ahead.
For years, we never got grants, and the reason they kept turning us down was because our balance sheet was so gorgeous. Now, I'm not saying we go out and borrow money just to get grants, but how many grants have we gotten in the last couple of years that we never would have gotten before? Because we borrowed that money for the $2.3 million or whatever, and a couple other things. That's the first thing they look at. They look at your balance sheet.
all good discussion for the public workshop.
One last comment, Dennis.
I mean, we went to the taxpayers and we told them we can finish this road program for the first money we borrowed. And now we're gonna say we can finish the road program for $5 million, which is not gonna be possible, not unless we can do it all in 1 year. Every single year, that money goes up and the costs go up and keep going up. And we're gonna cry wolf too much to the taxpayers here, but you can say, we can finish this with this amount of money, and then go back to them again, and again, and again. I would take this, bite off smaller pieces to chew, and say what we actually can get done. I mean, look at us now doing Allen Street. Here it is, middle of September, we're starting to do Allen Street. What's up with that?
Only going to
I
school
mean, these
street.
things are gonna cost us more if we don't get our planning better ahead. You know, that should have been done been started a long time ago.
Yeah, well,
So we gotta do our planning a little bit better, and we gotta not try to convince the people that we give us X amount of dollars, we'll borrow another $5 million, and all the roads are gonna be great, because the roads are not gonna be great. I've been in this town for years and years and years, and it's the same problem all the time. And why should we spend a ton of money and make the roads correct in the first place, and just not patch them? You're gonna keep putting money into them forever. And even if you do, you're still gonna put money into them.
true.
So you gotta come up with a different method or a different process.
Thank you, Dennis. Anything else? Workshop on the 23rd at 5 PM, finish this discussion on roads, or continue this discussion on roads. Next is new business. Saw a nice letter in the local paper about the appeal for the rat ban. Fill us in on our liabilities with the rat ban, John.
So
Tracy
when
did
our-
a lot of the follow-up on
We had the risk management folks up here just to, kind of do a walkthrough and talk to us about inventory and that sort of stuff. And during that time, the rat ban came up in discussion. We currently, or up until September 1st, had Progressive as our car insurance for the rat ban. And this underwriter asked, well, does that cover, let's say a client says they're assaulted, or a driver says they're assaulted by a client? We're not covered for any of that. So as you can see in your packets, quite a bit of dialogue was exchanged, and for not a whole lot more money. So at the tail end, I think it's going to cost us about $1,000 more a year to insure the rat ban, but we are under the MMA umbrella, which will cover us for anything and everything that could happen in the scope of volunteer service. Now, in order for it to really fully be an MMA program, we need to have an ordinance in place. And we need to either walk away from the rat ban program altogether, wash our hands for it, turn the funding over to whoever wants to coordinate and walk away, or we need to really embrace this and get an ordinance put together, have town policies, bylaws, rules, regulations, that sort of stuff. We're doing everything except for the ordinance as it is right now. We have financial control, we pay their bills. It's a stipend position for the coordinator. That has to be, we just really need to have it in the ordinance committee. And Paul Newt, the gentleman that is currently the coordinator of the program, is gracious enough to say he will help the ordinance committee and will come in and make sure you all understand how the program works and how the ordinance will benefit the town and protect us from exposure.
In one of the lawyers' diatribes there in the emails, it did mention policy or ordinance. So is there, well, my question is, under what umbrella is this rat ban going to be, first of all? Which department?
Probably what it currently has its own, doesn't it have its own budget? Does it have its own budget line? It has its own budget line. Would it be?
So, can't we just have a policy for an operational policy instead of going through the litany of ordinance? Because I did read that in there where the lawyer recommended that was a potential possibility.
Selectmen can adopt a policy, town meeting has to adopt an ordinance.
Right, so if a policy was drafted by Paul Newt and the staff in the building here, and then presented to the Board of Selectmen, we'd be done pretty quick, as opposed to waiting and scheduling a town meeting. You all comfortable with that notion, start off with, and then if we haven't filled all the holes in the future, then we'll have time to have the ordinance committee go through all of this. You good with that?
Just
You're not gonna make me look bad, are you?
Not at all.
You sure?
Exactly.
All right, because I thought this was a pretty good one, Dennis.
It'll make you look better.
Go ahead.
Technically, no matter how you look at it, if the town finances the rat ban and runs the rat ban, we are providing public transportation. And we not only have to meet liability laws, but we have to meet a lot of other laws that are under public transportation. Somebody needs to look that stuff up to make sure we're not liable.
Yeah, that's the risk management portion. You had a comment, Chris?
I was just gonna say that once you adopt a policy, you're gonna need any of your volunteers to sign off on some acknowledgement that they've read the policy and understand the policy, otherwise you your protection you're trying to protect yourself from won't be there.
Comment?
Yeah, I remember Cindy, the board asked me to go look into this, the rat ban, a couple years ago maybe.
I believe it was 2
Yeah,
or 3
okay,
years ago.
anyway. There used to be a group of people that were a coordinator and all this stuff, and we couldn't find any board. They dissolved.
Yeah, it dissolved. It really
And
did.
there's no records of even who, what, or where.
I have some, I think the whole thing started like in the very early days, 1991. The town got involved to
Yep.
help this group of people get grant funding. And there was Rangeley roundtables, there's some notes in there, that sort of stuff. And there were some draft bylaws. Nothing was signed by the board. There was, not in my files. I can't find anything in my office that has anything concrete in it. All just kind of left to go on its own. So
Dennis and I were on the board back then when they did all this. They brought that grant proposal to us and needed the town of Rangeley to sign off on it so they could make the application. And then when they got the grant, they came back to the Board of Selectmen, and we had to authorize the acceptance of the grant so it could be applied for the purchase of the van, the very, very first van, which was a lot of money back then. And not that these are cheap, but there was no organizational structure in my memory banks that said this is how it was to be
Something
run.
we had, and so we just kind of pushed it along, and we've actually kept it going by replacing the vans over years. But the people that were at the head of it that really pushed the idea in the beginning have since gone. And so the town is, it's almost like kind of assumed that.
Well, in the beginning, the only reason the town got involved is because the money had to go through the town.
right.
But originally, that was all we were gonna do, was handle the money, and then somehow it ended up, we put in charge of the rat ban, and the rest.
Well, it's a necessary,
But it's definitely necessary.
Ethan.
Can we have the, I don't know what the stipended position title is, but can we have him, would he be willing to, can we force someone to give us a report like the fire chief does to anybody else? That way we, things won't just dissolve, and we won't know about it. We'll get a little piece of paper once in a while.
I think if we have a policy in place, we put it in, he does send me the educational spreadsheet about the usage and that sort of, Lane wasn't giving me anything. I mean, it hasn't been since I've been here. So, this gentleman was actually a little more engaged and
Because we were getting complaints, that's why I was asked to look into it, but I couldn't find anybody to be in charge of it, kind of. They had the coordinator, but that was it, no board or anything, so.
I'm in favor of a policy over an ordinance if it's,
Oh,
if
yeah.
it's cheaper, faster, better, and, if it works.
So John, how do you want to do this? You want to just get us a policy and bring it before us? You don't need a motion for that?
We'll draw something up, and then you, not only is it easier for you to adopt it, but it's easier for you to amend it. So we'll do that at a regular time.
Right.
Things come up.
For those of you who don't know, Paul Newt is a gentleman who just moved to this area not too long ago. He and his wife stepped up to the plate, taking this program over, and he's got quite a list of volunteer drivers, but as he's intimated to me on more than one occasion, he could use some more. So if any of you have free time, he says it averages out a driver's driving twice a month. So, I mean, it sounds like a great deal of time commitment, but it really boils down to not too much time commitment for a necessary part of our Etna.
I just have kind of a quick question, well, it might not be quick. In times past, they have turned down certain people who have asked for a ride. If we are going to take this on as a town and cover it completely, umbrella it, I mean, that makes it turns it into public transportation. Where are we gonna have the guidelines for who can and can't get rides with this thing? Because in past practice has been to turn people down because the appointments were too long and the car couldn't wait.
Yeah, I'd heard that. Okay.
Yeah, that.
So when we get it back, we'll talk about it here in the meeting, and those of you in the room can chime in on things that may or may not be on that policy. I'll make sure that that happens. We all set with that one? Anything else from the board? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right. There is another organization too that does pick up for, like, I believe the issue was with the dialysis. People that were in town, there is another organization that does give rides for those. And I can't remember what the organization is, but I can find out.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
There, Steve. Make sure you have volunteer insurance if it's going to be a town thing. It's only $350 a person through MMA, and it'll save you a lot of money.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, good point. Anything else? All this information is good, appreciate it. Are you here about the MMA delegation? No? Cool. Just seeing how we do it up here in the woods, huh?
Just sitting up here.
Thank you, Brad. Next is the marijuana business regulation petition. In your package, you have the petition that has been verified in terms of amount of signatures.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we submit the petition for marijuana business regulation to legal for review.
All right, I have a motion.
Hold on.
I'm holding.
Sure. Second, we can have discussion about this.
Moved and seconded on sending this to legal before we move further.
So Tricia gave us a resource to review in our packets. And that was to see our municipal officers manual starting on page 36 for guidance in the petition process. Upon reviewing that, there was also a reference, or I made notes, regarding the Maine Municipal Association Town Meeting and Elections Manual regarding voters' petitions, which is Chapter 5, and that's been handed out to the board. And what this addresses is case law that exists in Maine when the board is presented with a petition to reconsider an action after a formal adjournment, which means after a formal vote at town meeting. And basically what it states is the town of Vassalboro faced a similar petition. Well, actually it was 3 petitions presented to them for a revote by secret ballot referendum that a bond issue lost 399 votes to 390. And basically the Supreme Court of the state of Maine says that the Board of Selectmen did not need to entertain the petition for a revote because it creates a ping-pong effect of warrant issues back and forth by a minority faction of dissatisfied voters. If the first vote was reasonably concluded to be valid on an issue, then there's only supposed to be one vote on an issue. It does advise in this is an MMA publication. It advises that each municipal officers can certainly have legal counsel review. But basically this petition is just asking for us to approve or to present the opt-in for marijuana business regulation, which was already voted on and defeated in June by our town of Rangeley voters. The only way to opt in, the only way to allow marijuana business regulation for those wishing to operate after December 13th of 2018 is to opt in by ordinance or charter. We are not a charter municipality, we're an ordinance municipality, and this was presented to the voters for vote in June and defeated by 25 votes. So this prior case law that is in effect, someone who doesn't want, or, I mean, there could be a counter petition next week. And, you know, Steve, you said, and those of us sitting said, the three that voted to send this to the voters, were like, this is their chance, this is the vote, let's just put it to the voters and see what they say. Well, the voters have spoken. And this is simply a petition to reconsider an action after a formal decision. Legal vote has been made by the inhabitants of the town of Rangeley.
Thank you. Ethan?
Two things. So I, of course, remember the vote, remember the first one we did at town meeting. Is this the exact same question that we were asked? Is that what I mean, essentially it is, correct?
The intent is the same.
Okay.
What was your answer?
The intent is the same.
The intent is the same, the context is different.
Okay. And what are we going to send this to legal for? What are they reviewing about it specifically?
Good that it falls under this law, that this is simply a petition to reconsider an action or a decision already made by the voters of the town of Rangeley. So there's no need to present this to the voters again.
Okay. One more question. If we send this to legal, they give their recommendation, and it turns out we're going to put this on the ballot anyways, do we have time still to do this for this petition, or is this just going to, is it just going to stall them out? Are we going to be making a decision by not making a decision, is what I'm asking.
Boy, do we have time frames if we send it to legal, John, for the next,
Maybe not, huh? You need 45 days?
Oh, my God.
The next meeting would be September 23rd. So 32, and election is the 12th. 44 days.
Well, I mean, it's not like this is a new, I mean, I don't know why the board of selectmen, why this wasn't presented as information to review as well. If this is a long-standing case, decision made in Maine Superior Court, this board was actually presented with a petition 3 times, and with slight changes in wording, and there was, all 3 times, the Maine Supreme Court states that, you know, if the vote was binding by a municipality, then, and there is only one way to opt in. If Maine state law changed and we needed to re-vote, that would be a different matter. But there's still, the default is prohibition, and the only way to opt in is to vote by ordinance, which has already happened.
I'm not sure if what might count is the fact that there's changes made to this proposal different from what was in the original one the town voted. That might give them the opportunity. So, and that sounds like a legal opinion on that.
But if it is different, it should go to legal to make sure we're on good ground here, that's all.
the question still remains from Ethan that I didn't hear the answer to. Is there sufficient time? No.
Not sufficient time for, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Not sufficient time before the next regular meeting. The only way it would work is if we called a meeting in the interim, which I don't know if we're really interested in.
What the rule is 45 days before the election, the clerk, so that the clerk can prepare the ballots so they're available for absentee voters 30 days before the election. And so this, wait till the 23rd, that gives us 44 days. So it'd be really tight to try to, get it.
All right, John, I haven't had an opportunity to go through however many pages there are in this one
It's
here
just
tonight.
a little over 2
But
pages.
I did go through all of this in our book here, the Municipal Officers Manual. There were a couple of points in the pages here, particularly on page 37, that the town clerk has verified that there are appropriate signatures, so that's done. Review the proposed article, which should appear in your attached petition. I was called and somebody told me that that wasn't available to them, but I have since found out that that was available. I don't know how it was presented to everybody, and I can't speak to that, but I can speak to the fact that the petitioners did have that with them, unless, again, somebody is lying to me about that, but I don't think so. And so that, we met that requirement, and then if the petition is ambiguous or poorly worded, which speaks to what Cindy's referring to,
No,
getting,
it doesn't speak to what I'm saying at all, Steve.
well, in terms of getting legal review,
No, all I'm saying is that there is current case law that states, this has already been voted on, it's an opt-in. That's all this is an opt-in to allow marijuana businesses in Rangeley.
yeah.
What the details are underneath isn't significant,
Right.
but it's an opt-in. The only way to opt in is by ordinance, and we've already had that vote, and it was defeated. It's completely separate than this.
This is if it probably hasn't been done before.
That's if it hasn't been done before. This is something completely different.
Petitions happen all the time, folks. All the time. And every board, even 100 years ago when I served on it with that gentleman right there and this gentleman right here, we had petitions brought before us.
I'm not saying that is...
Okay, so let me finish, Cindy. I gave you all the time you needed. Is that what I had to go on for today's meeting is right here. This shows up tonight.
This should have been in our packets.
But, again, I'm not going to cast any dispersions on anybody over there. I spoke with a lawyer today about this. This is what we have to respond to relative to the petition.
No,
I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to figure out
that's why...
all the rest of this. Okay? I'm going to get to everybody out there in just a minute, I promise. You have any more you want to comment about the petition and how it was presented? And
I don't entirely disagree with Cindy. I don't know if folks are taking me that way. I just wanted to see if there was a way we could please both sides and do it as fair as possible, because it's definitely a topic of contention. I do see the similarities. When I read through the thing, I wondered to myself whether it was the same vote that had been voted down in June. But I also didn't want this to be misconstrued as a stall tactic. And that was the reason for my question to John about when things had to be sent forward. Is there a way to hold a meeting in between to satisfy both of these, satisfy members on this board and satisfy the people that cast the petition?
We can do a special meeting, just to deal with this subject. All you're required to do is present this to the public for them to decide. That's what the petition system is about.
Yeah, no, I understand.
People who were aggrieved by the previous decision came up with some new wording, apparently, new title, and want to present that to the citizens. So if they have enough signatures, which they apparently do, and the other question is the actual language that will be on the ballot. That has to be, all right, so the actual ballot language would be, do you support the passage and adoption of the Town of Rangeley Marijuana Business Regulation Ordinance regulating medical and adult use marijuana businesses within Rangeley? That's the whole question. And if they have enough signatures, then you're pretty much obligated to present it. And you can certainly call for a hearing, prior to the vote, but my My guess again is that since it's changed somewhat, you have to have the vote of the
Now, it also states in, it also states in the third paragraph under the justification aspect of this thing here, if the petition is ambiguous or poorly worded, notify the circulator, so on and so forth. Last sentence. The board may put its own competing article in the warrant, which is not ambiguous, should we determine that it is ambiguous, which would need the legal review, because I'm not going to make that determination.
That's a possibility.
Yep. Any other comments, Donnie, before I go up front?
You know, just from this out of where this is from this thing. I mean, what they're trying, what the court's saying is this ping pong thing. It failed or it passed, and a week later they get a petition to reverse what they just did. Well, then, you know, like it said in the thing, 2 weeks later somebody else comes. I mean, we can be bouncing back ping pong balls here forever. I just wish, if this is the case, fine. If it's not, then probably ought to get a legal opinion if this was exactly what this says.
In the legal opinion I got today to help me, I didn't know this term ping pong was even around, but I did ask, how many petitions are available? And the lawyer told me today, many petitions as people want to take the time to put together. That is the way it is run.
Yes, but
And you don't have an opportunity to say, you can't have it, we've already done that.
But is that talking about a whole new petition that nobody's ever seen before, or rehashing an old one?
I didn't ask it that way, but what I did get for a response,
Well, that's
and I
what
said,
this is.
how many times can you go over it? Look how many times ranked choice voting is what he said to me. Look how many times the gay rights has gone. Look how many times women's suffrage rights have been, until it became,
It's irrelevant.
well, guess what? It might be irrelevant to you or to you.
It's not irrelevant.
But
you have a formal town warrant that was done, which you had to
Chris,
vote.
I will come to you, I promise, and the debate will ensue, I know it will. But we have some other hands up. Go ahead, Cindy.
You can bear an house.
Your discussion with your attorney is irrelevant. We discuss and we seek legal counsel as a board. So what your attorney has to say, we don't know what you asked, we don't know how you asked it.
You're
We don't
correct.
know. So
You're correct.
that discussion, it doesn't matter, Steve.
Well, it may not matter to you or to anybody else, but since I didn't understand it, I saw some, which you would do too. And I think you've got quite a history of doing it. Either way, I understand your point, and I thank you for bringing it up. We'll start right over here to the left.
I just want to throw out that I feel like this is an argument based solely on the subject matter, because I'm going to remind everyone in this room, we brought culture back to the table after it got voted down, because we weren't sure of the process.
Yeah, we brought
Sir?
it back, not by petition.
Can I?
Yeah.
I
Go right
took
ahead.
the time to write it up, so I'm not gonna mention all of it, but you can read it.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll leave one for Dave as well. I had 3 concerns with this particular piece. And I'm only gonna touch on the first and third, I won't touch on the second one. I'm concerned that what it actually is an attempt to circumvent our ordinance process. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that an ordinance must come from the ordinance committee. That's how our town is structured. This doesn't come from the ordinance committee. There are significant changes. I went through it.
Start there.
This new ordinance, without having any town hearings, without having any public hearings, removes all the or reduces or removes the setbacks, reduces and removes the limits that we put in place that we spent a year and a half talking about. So essentially, I see it as an attempt to kind of short-circuit the system. And that's not how we're designed. Now, someone could argue it's simply a modification, but how can you modify that which wasn't adopted? If you don't have an ordinance, you can't modify it. So I see this as trying to create an ordinance and using the wrong process, and I'm concerned about that. We have to follow the procedure we have. Our town says ordinances come from the ordinance committee to the selectmen, go through town here. We have it for a reason. And so now we've got some significant changes, and there's been no hearings, there's been no discussion on this. So I'm concerned about that we're short-circuiting the process we have in place. The second one I won't really talk about is the process used for obtaining signatures. There are some concerns with that, but My final one is I'm concerned about, you've mentioned it, the ping pong effect. If we allow a second vote, well, they're gonna have to allow a third vote, and how can we limit that? Are we going to endlessly be discussing this thing? As Cindy pointed out, the MMA has a legal, a court case precedent that says a legal binding vote, which ours was, and the vote was, by the way, folks, 56% to 40%, with 4% abstaining. You can look up the numbers. It was a 46 vote difference. That's fairly significant in our community. And I feel like what's happening is, okay, I understand they didn't like the results, but you're trying to overturn the results of a duly constituted election. And so the case law says, you can say, how often are we going to revisit this? So let's say it does go forward and it passes, then a group, we can put together a petition and then we do it again. And if you disallow that, well, then you're going to have some legal challenges. So I mean, we really want to go down that road as a community. I'm just concerned that there's some problems here that instead of just accepting, and as Cindy said, I just came to meetings, I heard you all say we're going to put it out to the voters. The voters voted. The voters said no. And that's, the bottom line. So those are my two primary concerns. The third one is with how it was presented, but I won't address that. There were some issues there. I think there was some people who presented it, whether it was intentional or not, they presented it as being about home rule, telling people that we don't have that right now when we do, and we have the right to opt in or opt out, and we opted out. So I think I'm concerned with the whole process. I appreciate your allowing me to speak.
Absolutely.
And I would encourage you to please reject this petition because of the wrong process, and we're going to just keep volumes back and forth, back and forth. And we really want to spend our resources, our time, our energy. Okay, it took the ordinance committee, what, a year and a half? 12, I don't know, 14 months, whatever it was, to create that. It was a lot of work. And to just throw something out there without that process, that really doesn't set a right example, I don't think, for our community. Thank you. Yes?
Yes, I would like to address the fact that I heard from a few people that what this petition was presented to them as was a bit deceptive. I saw the list of people that signed the petition. I was really surprised at some of the people that were on that list, friends of mine, and I called some of them and I said, did you really want the town of Rangeley to reconsider having marijuana businesses in town? And then I said, no, that's not what we signed. One person said, I was told it was to make sure we had local control and the state couldn't tell us what to do. He said, I specifically said to them, I don't want marijuana in town, and the person doing the petition said, no, neither do I. I talked to another young woman who was a young mom, and she said, well, it was kind of vague and confusing, but he said it was so that we could make sure that the state couldn't tell us what we had to do with marijuana here in town. And he said, right now, if children had marijuana at school, there's nothing to regulate that, and we want to make sure it is. Well, that isn't what this petition is. And I just think that people were deceived into signing something they didn't intend to sign.
Thank you. Al?
I want to address sort of three things he did. One, I totally agree that the town should get legal advice because clearly there's a difference of opinion from various different things before you proceed. I agree it is the ping pong effect. This is a workaround. I was asked to sign this petition. I had that discussion. And that's exactly what they said. They said it was to keep it with local control. I did not sign it because I had an argument with the guy explaining to him how it was supposed to do. And he was just like, well, he tried to make nice and back off and whatever. But the point is, I didn't sign it, but I was asked to sign something. And when I read it, I said, this is not what this says. This says something else. And then it says, well, that's what it means. And then when you get the thing underneath, it isn't just for this little thing, adopt the passage of it. It's attached to a whole different ordinance that didn't go through the process. So this is wrong on a lot of different levels because it circumvents the process of the ordinance. This is a very confusing thing. It isn't like a usual petition, which says we ask the town of voters of Rangeley to raise $4,000 for this. It isn't very clear. It is very confusing and purposefully confusing so that people would sign this and not understand what they did. So that was one thing. It was purposely confusing. And I just really feel like if we're going to go through, I feel we shouldn't ping pong it, but if we are going to go through it, we got to go through the whole ordinance thing all over again so that everybody can get a chance to see and talk about what the new things are. So this should not go on the ballot.
Thank you. Did you have something, Shelley?
As a prior selectman that was part of this decision, we did say as a board that we would put it out to the public, and that was voted for, and that was agreed upon. I personally asked, can we have 2 questions on it? Not just the ordinance. Can we say, do you want marijuana businesses in town of Rangeley? And that got totally shut down as an idea because they said, and that's the message that we put out to our taxpayers, is that if this ordinance did not pass, we were opting out at this time. And I just feel that as a board, I think you should honor that.
Thank you. Chris?
Can I go after Luke? I'm kidding.
Ma'am, right behind you.
Man, lad.
Hi,
I'd like to speak to the point that this lady in the row made. I was approached at the Rangeley dump, and I did not see the petition. I've only heard it since the town manager has read it. But they talked to me about home rule. It said, do you think Rangeley should be able to make its own rules? And I said, I'm happy with the vote. Then I went into the Rangeley, you all know the Rangeley Walmart, the little building. I went in there to look around, and one of the young men, there were 2 young men, one of the young men followed me in and said, I don't think you understood. And so he said the same things over again. And I said, I understood, and I like the vote that we had. I'm satisfied. But it was not presented, the word marijuana was never said, but I figured out what it was about. So I have to back her up because I'm the person who was asked.
Thank you. Thank you. Dennis?
I'm not speaking to the marijuana part of this issue, I'm speaking to the petition part of this issue. Cindy is correct that the court ruled that if people keep coming back to the same petition on something then decide the selectmen do not have to honor that. But understand just what the court said. They do not have if they so choose. If you choose, you can take all the petitions that you want. The court is just telling you you're not forced to continue taking repetitive petitions on the same issue. But if you choose that you want to do that, you can do that. That's an option. It's not, there's no law against you refusing petitions.
The summary says that the law bars the petition. It can be an argument if it qualifies, which is what.
If it's a different petition, that even if one word is changed, it's a different petition.
Not if the intent is the same.
What's that?
Not if the intent is the same.
Yeah, I think you ought to talk to your lawyer.
Right.
You get enough votes, get your lawyer to look at it. I mean, we had one selectman before getting the lawyer on their own. Why can't you guys?
Well, we can get a lawyer, we can have it reviewed, you know that. You know that. Hold on, I'm out front here first. You ready? Gary, did you have something first?
I'll wait too. Not first, I'll wait too.
Go ahead.
Speak, let him speak.
So this petition is reasonably fairly different than the last one. I personally, I'm hearing what these other people said. I alone got enough valid signatures by myself, and I didn't say any of what you guys are saying about how it's presented to you. I had the petition with me the entire time. I was asked by a percentage of people if they could see it. They want to know what changes were in it. I told the ones that asked, and I says, I'm circulating this petition. If you want details, ask me. I said, things have changed since the vote. 1 week after the last vote, the state decided the town's going to 12% revenue share out of this. So, if my operations were in this town, the town of Rangeley is going to be passing up about $300,000. That's one thing that's a lot different than before. I did everything the way I'm supposed to. I worked with 2 attorneys from Beryl Dana who consulted with the MMA, and we made extra sure we did it right. I'm 100% sure this holds up, this stands up, and a delay tactic, whatever. If you guys want to check, but needs to come back before it's too late, because I did my homework on it. I'm positive. And like I said, it is a different question. There wasn't tax revenue sharing prior to this. Yes, it's been changed, in my opinion, for a positive way. So that's what I got for now.
I think the most recent marijuana cheat sheet that is dated August of 2019 indicates there's absolutely no revenue sharing on the local level.
It's sitting right at appropriations right now, waiting.
Oh, come on, it's sitting, it's
passed the House, it's passed the Senate.
That's not what you said. And this is just an example
It's,
of what this
MMA.
petition stands for.
well, that.
Smoke and mirrors.
That's not in the petition, though. So there's no lying there.
But that was one of your selling points, you said. You said there'd be
It's going to happen.
Okay. Chris?
So, many have already spoke to the techniques in that, so let's just assume from my argument here state that Luke gathered all the signatures himself properly for enough to satisfy the petition. Regardless of the other, I had a similar experience with the home rule. The guy was talking and we had a nice discussion. But the key issue to this is, that's germane, is that I think for the sake of the town, and we sat here at a public hearing, and not all the, I couldn't find all the videos for all the meetings online. There's some that aren't on there. I went back through to watch, because I asked very specifically at that meeting, and I'm sure you guys remember, I said, if this goes to vote, and we do this on the town ballot, and the ordinance is voted down, are you considering that the word of the people, that we've made a decision and move on? And I heard that back from you guys, that you were like, we want to give the people the vote, because I asked you to wait a year until we could see what happened with the revenue sharing, we could see what happened there, and people were in support of that public hearing, and we were like, nope, we're going forward with the ordinance. And that was the deal. So to me, the reason that exists, and the reason that the law court votes on that, is very similar to double jeopardy for criminal prosecution. It's very simple to res judicata, which is an old rule that where something has been asked and answered. This question has been asked and answered. Now we can sit here and we can talk about tweaking ordinances there, and we can go there. That's fine. This gets voted down again. Luke could write up another whole thing, and his team, Farrell Dana lawyers, and write another ordinance and put it in front again, and we can keep going this the town thing. My suggestion is, get the legal counsel. You do have some flexibility. It depends with your town clerk about you've got 30 days, you need 30 days to prep for an absentee ballot. It's 44 days to your piece there. And you can check, but I'm pretty sure that you have some flexibility if your clerk feels comfortable having only 14 days instead of 15 days to prepare, that you could make the decision to review this and do that 23rd. That gives your council 2 weeks to look at this and see if the way that ordinance is compared to the other ordinance, if it fits under the rules of this law court case that deals with that issue. And then you can decide, and you still can decide, if they come back and say no, you can still say, we're not going to accept a petition, and then they have to go through an ADB motion with all the Farrell Dana lawyers and all that, and file in order to overrule, to bring it back to you in that piece. You do not have to make that decision if you've already had it done at your level. Or you could choose right now to infinitely table it, or do something along those lines. That's your call. But I would suggest, in fairness to the efforts that he has made, which, as you know, my opinion on this whole ordinance, been very clear and very vocal about it, that send it to legal, get an answer before you make that decision, and I think you can make some adjustments in order to accomplish that, to allow, to be fair to both sides. I think Ethan put it that way. Because if I was on the other side of this and wanted that, I would want that same fairness too. So, as I joke with Luke, I said, here we are, round two, but I think that that's fair, is to put it out to council. You have a very competent council that can review this and come back with you and say, does this law court case apply to this? What's here?
Well, I can't imagine, even having this up for a vote without having a legal look at it. I mean, the first one they did, I certainly wanted to look at one that we didn't put together ourselves, just because. I mean, what happens if it passes and we find there's all kinds of stuff in here that it's not right, so.
Hang on, Dennis. Gary?
Anyway.
For me to say everything that everyone's already said is too repetitious.
Okay. Dennis, you had another comment?
The only point I wanted to make, a few years ago, the town of Rangeley, at the June town meeting, passed a mandatory recycling ordinance.
Exactly.
By the fall, there were people who gathered enough petitions, they brought it back to town and they voted it out. So these things can happen and they can change.
Right.
It wasn't even by fall, I don't believe. I think it was still in
It
the
was right
summer.
on.
Yeah.
You,
I
Gary?
do have a question now. According to state law, we must opt into it, correct? If we opt into it, are we in forever according to state law? Can we opt out after that? Because we're talking about this so-called ping pong effect. How can you opt out of something you forced the voters to decide upon again? They're saying you must opt in. We've opted in, so we say to the state, and we changed our mind, we're going to have another vote, we're going to opt out. Is the state going to allow that to happen continuously?
No, because if you don't like what the selectmen do, you vote in your selectmen.
But this isn't a selectman decision.
That's not what
Yes,
that
it is. They're the ones that have to accept the petition to get the process.
That
going.
part is correct.
Well, once you get a business set up, then what?
Yeah, then you got problems.
Yeah.
If you amend that motion and allow for a special meeting and he calls it whatever has to happen, I will vote for your motion. How about that? You allow for legal to look at that and for there to be enough time to get that on the ballot if it needs to, and I will vote for your motion.
I'm not sure discussion's up, but thank you.
I
Yeah.
can't hear you. I'm sorry.
No, that was my discussion.
I heard yours. I didn't hear your response.
I just pointed out there are more people that want to speak.
Yeah.
I didn't answer.
Yep. Go ahead.
You're making like there's this important time pressure to get this in front of the voters. There really isn't time pressure to get this in front of, it took six months, 18 months last time to get through all the things so that voters understood what they were voting for. This, if we put this in the ballot, the voters will not understand what they're voting for because there is not time to get that. This will be on the ballot, but all the 38 pages of the petition will not be in the ballot and have time to
That's
discuss
verified
that.
by.
And that is just not fair to the voters to put that kind of thing on the ballot.
The petition does say
No,
November 5th.
they don't.
I know that,
they-
and I'm saying you're creating a time
No.
pressure that I don't feel exists.
It still may not end up on the ballot.
Well, I think it should, period, not under the ballot. This should have to go through the process. If you consider, and that you consider, yes, we should reconsider this after your vote, and after you talk to legal, it should still have to go through the same 18 months in public hearings before it ends up on the
There's
ballot.
two issues, Val. First of
Yes.
all, there's two issues. And despite what my esteemed colleague to my left tells me, all I can go by today, because I have not had time to go through all of this, I don't know where everybody else got it and why I didn't get it till 2 minutes after I got here.
But we all got it.
We're talking about a petition, excuse me?
We all got it at the same time. She handed it out when she handed out the rest of the stuff.
No, I understand that. though.
Yeah,
I understand that.
saying,
That doesn't
yeah.
give me time to read it.
No, no,
All right.
but I'm just saying.
So, let me finish, guys. What I'm concerned with tonight, is this a petition valid? If it is, we have a certain guidelines we have to follow.
And
And
I'm
it doesn't require me to go through public hearings, doesn't require this board to call for anything. Cindy's made a motion about sending it to legal. That's what we're working on, the second part of this, okay?
What I'm saying is that this is not petition in the usual sense of petition. This is a petition hiding a huge ordinance that was written not by the ordinance committee.
But don't
We
you-
understand that completely.
Don't you think legal would find that?
Yes, I think legal should see that.
Well,
What
that's
I'm
where
saying
we're trying to
is
send it.
he's saying that it's not, you're saying you would have to follow only what's there, not what's going to.
No, that's not what I said.
No, it's-
That's not, I can do my talking for myself, everybody.
Okay.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, a petition has been presented to the Board of Selectmen. The initial movement on this evening was Cindy made a motion to send it to legal. So that's the motion that we're dealing with. But in terms of the petition, the Board of Selectmen have to follow this. I don't know anything about this yet. I haven't had a chance to even ask the town manager about any of this. In preparation for today for me, I asked a lawyer, and again, believe it or not, I'm not an untrustworthy person, but believe it or not, he told me you have to deal with what's in your pejorative to work with, and that's this year. Okay, go ahead, Steve.
So when we are presented with a petition, we do have a timeline required to respond. It cannot wait 6 months for a town meeting. They have no right to dictate the date. It doesn't have to be November 5th.
Okay.
We can, but it has to be within 60 days.
No, I don't think it even said that. I think it said it has to.
It's
State law.
State law when you're presented with a citizen's petition. So we had the progress or the process going with an ordinance, but this is different. It's a citizen's petition, and we have a timeline with which to respond. We can call a special town meeting December 6th, but I think for the sake of saving time and effort, that's why Luke indicated a date of November 5th, was because that's the next voting day.
That clears mud?
It's because you haven't really addressed the point that this isn't right. This isn't just a petition. This is a whole ordinance that's just gonna pass.
Exactly.
And that's an inappropriate way to pass an ordinance.
Yes.
Hidden under a petition.
Okay.
But it's not illegal.
Chris?
I think
I
it's
think-
illegal.
I hear Valerie's concerns loud and clear. I think that they could easily be covered if Cindy amends her motion to say, have legal review two things. One, the content and nature of the ordinance and compared to the one that we had, which allows you, as select persons, when you accept pursuant to your petition, if you choose to accept it, you're allowed to write your own motion in that there of what the petition question says. That's the last thing, I think it's your last paragraph, allows you to change it or amend it, as long as you're fitting the same goal or accomplishments there.
I read that to you. It says
so
the
you
board
can-
may put its own competing article in the warrant
Correct.
if the previous one is ambiguous.
Right, so you can clarify those two pieces,
Yep.
which doesn't necessarily mean you can clarify exactly the content of the ordinance, but that could be looked at. And the second thing is this main law court piece. Now, I understand you need to follow whatever your ordinances and procedures are on the town level, but the Maine Law Court is the highest court in the state of Maine, which regulates all state laws, which is inclusive of municipal law. So that will be the two questions that I think you need to have legal counsel do. One, does that case apply in this particular incident with a review of a ping pong in relation to the ordinance, even though the ordinance is slightly different? And Luke can probably categorize for us the 7 or 10 changes or whatever is proposed in there. And the second question that I would see that you'd ask counsel is to confirm that you can make changes to that and still fit with the look and feel of the intent of the petition, that part, so that you could review that. If you say, okay, the law court doesn't apply to this, but we're going to put it out to petition, are there some adjustments we can make to the article to that? And I think that would allow you to deal with both the issues that have been, multiple issues that have been brought up tonight.
Okay?
You know, another reason why this was run, around 300 voters came out for the town meeting. I needed 10% of the gubernatorial, which was just under 600. And then the presidential was 738 voters. So a lot of people approached me and said, man, I assumed that was going to pass. What happened? I'm like, low voter turnout, because those numbers are pretty accurate. We only had 35, 38% of the normal voters come out and vote. So I thought that was an additional great reason to run it one more time, and that is why I picked November 5th, trying to get it done before this, so it's a more broad turnout to see what's going on. Because I identified 206 people in a real poll prior to the last one that said we support it, but only 125 of them showed up.
Can I respond to you? Sure. You just said thought it'd be a good reason to run it one more time.
Yeah, because the town, we only had a small portion of the voters.
So I understand,
also,
but your statement leads one to believe that you are admittedly asking the same question.
Yeah, well, I'm not, and I've changed the ordinance because that's another thing I heard in between where it's like, hey, you guys made this too restrictive. Why is there only 2 retails? Why can we only grow out in one spot where you can't even do it? I was like, let me go back to the drawing board and work with my guys and fix this. Yeah, that's
stating what I heard.
Yeah.
And I appreciate
who's concerned about the differences in numbers, but a town meeting is for local business, and if people can't be bothered to come out, I mean, elections have consequences, and we had a duly constituted election, 300 people voted, cast votes. If those people can't be concerned, you know, I'm sorry, if it was well publicized, we had hearings, it was not like this was taking place in a vacuum, so that's what happens. You know, I didn't like the result, so I want to overturn it. Well, like I said, we run the issue now, gee, it passes, I don't like it, so I want to overturn it. You know, we just keep going back and forth on this.
Well, and this case cites the same argument. So the court noted that although the voter turnout was low and the margin of victory was small, there were no allegations that voters were unable to get to the polls because of a natural disaster or other adverse circumstances. And there was no evidence of fraud or impropriety regarding the election process. So it's, it's town meeting.
So,
Shelley?
I have a question. So Luke, you're on the ordinance committee.
Correct.
You are part of the team that created the ordinance.
Right.
And so then, is anything in our ethics policy where as a petition comes up and another ordinance is created? I mean, I think that your team worked a year and a half on the ordinance, and I just think that, I'm not sure if you actually went to them to talk to them about it or anything, or actually a better solution may have been having a petition to take it back to the ordinance committee. I mean, that's the only part. I mean, everybody works really hard to be on all the committees that are associated with the town. I've seen it, and I just think that, I don't know if that's right. Personally.
Is it, okay? Dennis?
Go back to the ordinance committee. The ordinance committee is basically a work group for the board of selectmen. There's nothing in, we don't have a charter. There's nothing in any ordinance that was passed that creates an ordinance committee. In times past, I've been on the board of selectmen when we worked on an ordinance, just the board of selectmen, we never sent it to the ordinance committee because it was a simple thing. The ordinance committee basically, everything doesn't have to be run by them. They only review what the selectmen give them to review.
Correct.
The way I see it, you have two things to do. First you've got to vote to see if your petition is good or not, whether you accept the petition. If you decide not to accept the petition, then you can deal with that. If you decide to accept the petition, then you've got to see, it's going to be enacting an ordinance, whether or not what you have to do for time limits to qualify for all the qualifications for a vote on an ordinance. And there are time limits that have to be, and there are public hearings that have to be, and before you can have an ordinance. So you'll probably never make the November 5th date, but if you accept the petition, you can say, yes, we're going to vote on this at a time that we're going to put forward. Now, you've got so many days to set a date. It doesn't mean that the date has to be 60 days away. It means that you've got 60 days to set a date, and that date can be another 6 months after that date.
60 days to respond.
Right.
No, it's.
That's only my opinion, and I'm definitely not a lawyer.
Listen,
And I've dealt with them, maybe.
You got a question this time?
Can't you
Be
vote
nice,
to table
Dennis,
it as
be
well?
nice.
Can't hear you.
Couldn't you vote to table it as well?
Yeah, we have that option as well. But we
We
have a
should-
motion on the table here.
We should vote on whether to send this.
That's the motion that's on the table. I want to make sure everybody's heard.
I understand, but, you know, what we're gonna vote on is whether this is going to legal or not.
That's the initial motion.
Right.
That Cindy has on the table. Correct, send it to legal.
Could you repeat
Yes, sir.
the motion, please, so it's clear what the motion is?
I don't have the verbatim, who has the verbatim motion?
I wrote down, submit the petition to legal for review. That's probably not word for word. I've got to go back to the tape together.
Was there more to it?
Yes.
No problem, I'm not,
Well, we can amend
I'm
it.
trying to.
She did it really quick.
What was that?
I have to go back to the tape to
Yeah,
get it word for word. I just wrote down,
there
submit the
more to it?
petition to
You
legal
can
for
amend it.
review.
I'll amend it to, I'll amend my motion to ask legal if the case of the inhabitants of the town of Vassalboro versus Frederick and Camille Denico, et al., and and everyone else involved applies in this case. And that would be a petition to reconsider action after formal adjournment. And if they could confirm that we could make changes
And you want them to look
to
at
the
this?
petition. And it would be the wording and the ordinance information attached to the petition.
Second.
Well, if we motion to, if we approve a motion to send this to legal, can we ask those questions anyways? Does it have to be an emotion to what question can be asked, or can we give John some questions that the board wants to ask and have those answered? Or it just seems like a complicated motion.
That's a good point.
Well, I would ask, do we have to accept the petition, for one thing?
Yeah.
And they can figure out where they can get the information from
Okay.
about the court case. And we want them to review this in case there's any errors in it.
Well, I don't
Or
think,
they-
I don't
stuff
think
they
there's such a
think-
thing as errors in it. I think it's a matter of
Well, because it
liability.
cites all kinds of stuff here, MSRA, blah, 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 and we just want to make sure that it's still valid, I would think. This, I mean, the original ordinance went to them, and they went over it. I would send this one to them and have them just go over it and make sure everything, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
It's very clear in our municipal officers manual, we do not need to accept this petition.
Right.
It's also clear that we can accept this petition. It's also clear that we can table it, and it gives us timeframes to work with. I want to stay within the law on this, is how we operate. This is just me now, you guys can vote any way you want. But to me, what we have here tonight is a petition brought, and we're going to accept the petition. And you bring up some good points, it hasn't been reviewed. And if you want to have it reviewed, then let's have it reviewed. And if he doesn't make the November 5th date, that's not heartburn to me. What is heartburn to me is make sure we're doing this correctly. That's my heartburn.
So if it does come back to legal and we vote to accept this petition, we're just gonna have to hold a vote, pay a little money. Is that what we're saying?
Good.
Under the guidelines in that manual that I read last night, is that how it read to you?
Yeah. I would hate to think that we're going to start a precedent by saying we're not accepting petitions, because the next thing you know, we're going to have a petition to increase the width of the sidewalks in town, and I'm just using this as a stupid example, because we have now decided that bikes are a necessary part of our economy. And, just because we don't like the content of one petition doesn't mean you don't want the whole process thrown away.
Okay.
All right? Two more questions, go ahead.
Don't complicate the issue. The issue to me is simple. You've got a petition. You want to know what your options are, whether you sign it, to accept it, or not to accept it. You should, number one, ask your lawyer that. What are our options? Should we accept it? What are our options? What are our requirements? Should we turn it down? What are our options? What's going to happen? And then you have a whole separate issue on reviewing this ordinance, which is separate from the petition. So the lawyers, you want them to do two things, not just one thing.
Yeah, but the ordinance is a part of the petition.
Yes, but it's not the petition. You're asking about what to do with the petition.
Whether we accept it or whether we don't.
Right.
Whether we can or not, that's.
Well, we can, and we can turn it down. Go ahead.
What I'd hate to see, which you might not believe, but what I'd hate to see is you send this to legal and you come back with more questions than answers. So I think it's very important that you ask specific on certain things so you have a clear answer, because lawyers are famous for, if you don't ask them specifically, they'll give you a real generic answer. Trust me, I do it all the time. And but the point, no, but the point is that you want to clearly understand if they feel that this case is on point or not for you, because that will make a decision on if you choose to reject the petition, then that's going to lay a groundwork for whatever appeal is done on ADB motion by both sides of this issue. They're going to support. And then the second thing, of course, is what Dennis is talking about, is that you have a very specific ordinance acceptance procedure that what you're saying in this position is, we want to bring forward this ordinance, whether it's November 5th or whenever it is, but you want that ordinance to be able to follow the particular procedure so that you don't have a problem later if you go through this whole procedure and then it does get accepted, that you don't create another whole vehicle for a guy like me to go, well, I'm going to get it thrown out because you guys didn't follow this procedure. So I think for the sake of fiscal responsibility for the town, those are definitely the two questions that I would be as clear as you can be with council, so that when you come back here in 2 weeks to vote on this, that you have all the information at your fingertips to feel comfortable. So when you get stopped on the street, whichever your decision, you can say it was thought out, council reviewed, and we did our due diligence to make a proper decision.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes.
It was mentioned that the ordinance wasn't part of the petition, but if you read it, they say, adopt the town of Rangeley, they actually use the title in the petition, so it ties the ordinance to the petition, so really they are coupled together. It's not like, do you want to adopt an ordinance dealing with this, do you want to adopt the, so it's very specific in that language, so we have to be careful with that. It's not as severable as some may like to think, because they said, this is what we want you to sign for. So I see them as inseparably linked.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I just ask that whatever motion is finalized here, that it leaves it on the table to have it hopefully voted on November 5th. That's what I like to see. I expect that it's going to check out as fine.
Thank you. So, initial motion was rescinded. Just want to be clear on that because we didn't do that. You said you wanted to amend it.
It was amended.
All right. And the amended,
It was amended.
can you give me a synopsis on?
Synopsis?
Exact words? No.
Exactly. Amend the motion, she wants to ask legal if the case, and she said the case applies in this case, and also confirm that you guys can make changes to the petition and ordinance attached.
Should we accept it?
Should what?
Should we accept the petition?
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any comments with that? We have a move. I hate to miss something here. It might be important. Anything?
Or just discussing the issue of changing the petition.
Okay. Ethan, anything else?
I'm just still the opinion that the motion's a little too specific, that's all. I think the questions can be asked. I think John can ask the questions. I think there's other ways to get our questions asked. I have questions, maybe Don does too. I just...
So do you think we should, have a meeting with the attorney to really ask questions?
We can do it over the phone.
Yeah.
It's not a terrible idea, for sure, because, we could each come up with a list of 100. How many is he gonna go through and mail back to us? It might be a little bit more of a fluid conversation if we can, we can make it.
Yeah.
There's only a real couple of questions that we really need to know. Does the ping pong thing apply here? They go over this, make sure everything's fine, that's about it. I don't know what else we need to ask them.
I just think we have to,
Oh, I just dropped that.
oh, yeah.
Not frustrating.
No. This could set a dangerous precedent if it falls within, the exception here, and we decide to accept the petition anyway. I think we need to be very, very clear.
Normally, we can't not accept a petition unless probably it's a ping pong petition. If somebody comes up with something new, they want
Something new.
put $5,000
Completely
in the budget for whatever reason.
Completely different.
We're pretty much obligated to put it on the ballot.
But this was an ordinance.
But
I will say this.
I want to clarify this thing.
If,
See if it's true or not true.
if we speak to legal in conference like you're talking about, we get all our questions answered.
True.
I'm gonna send a request to the town manager and the chairman to call a special meeting in time to get this put on the ballot in November, after we have our questions answered. so it doesn't have to be in the motion, I'm gonna request it.
On page 36 of this here, which you were informed to read this,
I did.
I know, and I'm sure everybody did, I'm not suggesting that anybody didn't. Very first line, this is one of the most controversial and misunderstood topics municipal officers will encounter. Line 1. And it talks about MRSA Title 30, so on and so forth. A written petition by a number of voters equal to 10% of the votes cast. That was verified. This is a valid petition.
You gotta read this.
Are you telling me, Cindy, in front of these people that this is not germane to what we're supposed to do?
To a point, it is.
What's the first thing you do?
It was presented to us because all of the signatures were validated.
And
We wouldn't- it
so
wouldn't
I'm
be
going to
here.
ignore all of this? Is what you're at? I won't do it.
Tricia's already done her work.
She
I'm
did
not
her
saying-
work,
And
and-
that's why it's before us.
Right.
So there is case law, there is, from the Maine Supreme Court.
I will vote to support legal review, and not this convoluted stuff that's all in that. I think,
The same people put out
I think,
this, the Maine Municipal Officers Manual, the same people put this out, Steve. So don't dismiss something you have no,
don't what?
don't dismiss something that you.
Cindy, I'm not dismissing a thing, but giving this to me at the beginning of the meeting and expect me to sit here and run this meeting and keep sure everybody's doing their thing, and I'm sorry, I'm not done, and digest this thing to the level that you have, and I don't have time to do that here tonight.
I digested it today as well.
Well, I'm proud of you, but I didn't, and I'm not going to suggest that I did, nor, pardon me, am I going to misrepresent anybody. Last thing, and then we're going to move.
I'm just sitting here, just kind of asking my attorney questions on what's going on.
Yeah, I can't do that one,
Can't
because
do
if my attorney's no good, yours is
Okay,
too.
all right.
Okay?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Anything else you want to go, and we'll move this question?
Okay.
We good? All in favor of Cindy's motion? Opposed? No opposed. It's moved. Get legal review in the way that was. Thank you, everyone. I know we're going to see a mass exodus while waiting for the noise to. Next is the MMA Convention Delegate and Alternate Appointment. Have you been a delegate to that in the past?
I don't think it's Maine Municipal Association has.
Well, why are we seeing all this? This is like the 7th time I've seen this in the course of a year that I've been doing it.
And maybe it just hasn't been presented to us before.
Okay.
I don't know.
What's your thoughts? Is it just point out what's going on? We don't have any movement here.
Yeah, last year you appointed me as delegate, and
So moved. I appoint John.
Tracy.
Yep,
Sounds great.
sounds great. I
Sounds
appoint John.
awesome.
Tracy is the alternate.
Say that one again?
Tracy's the alternate.
Tracy's the alternate. Moved and seconded? All in favor? Done.
You gonna let them have the day off to go?
What's that?
They're already there.
Oh, they've already been.
Yeah.
So you get delegates to the commission, it's already been held.
office will be closed October 2nd and 3rd.
Town manager updates, department head updates. You've got all of that in there. Any comments, questions? I will tell you that we had a very nice discussion today with North Star on regards to those points that were being made. And from this point forward, there's going to be a discussion with the fire chief, with North Star and the town manager. And we're hoping you'll be the representative on the North Star board.
If that's what the selectmen would like.
Yeah, I'm hoping they will like that, but that's the discussion that went on today. And help with, and some of the points that were brought up in some of our meetings were clarified today, and I think you need to be privy to that.
Yeah, so I was out of town at another meeting, so I missed that one.
I don't think all the town knows that there's 3 of you in an EMT course right now.
There is, yeah.
Yep. Thank you, all 3 of you, for your dedication to this. Just a tiny bit of an update with this. The suggestion from North Star was to increase the first responder program here in town. That will help with coverage in terms of emergent care and immediate care. until an ambulance can get there, because there may be an ambulance coming from far away to get here. So that was understood. Any other things I missed on that? No?
No, I think, we gotta meet with the chief and with them and
Yep.
come up with,
Yep,
something.
So I got a question to ask you about that, if I could.
sure.
Did they speak to anything about if we're gonna have all these fire department first responders, whether or not they're gonna be taking the medics out of town more often than they do now, which is quite a bit? Because we'll be doing their work for them. Was that discussion made about the service we're getting?
I have a lot of comments on it, but I think it's probably best served between the town manager.
If you would be patient with this particular one, let him get on that board, and let's let the two of them finish the discussion that was started today, I think.
They would love to have the fire department do first responding on all their calls.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody would.
Which is great for them.
Yeah.
You save a lot of money.
Yep. We did talk about money and how this all flushes out, so there were those discussions, yeah. But I think more discussion has to be had before we go into a public disclosure of everything, because there is a lot of unanswered questions. Made that clear today as well, too.
I just
Anything
want to
else?
make sure that what they can do for us is just as important as what we can do for them.
Spoken like a true
Two-way
Kennedy, I
street.
like it. Ask not, country to do for you.
That's right.
That's right. Very good. Oh, Dennis, I miss those days. Okay, 10. Anything else in here that you want to talk about in department head updates? On September 10th at 11 a.m., Senator King's representative will be here at the town office. On September 21st at 10 a.m., ribbon cutting ceremony at the airport. On October 2nd and 3rd, MMA convention, which a number of us will be attending. The 31st, AvCog's annual planning day. You guys need to close the town office for that day, or is that? No?
No, but Cindy's, Jeff and Tom is.
Tom, yeah.
That's General Assembly.
Okay, good.
So Tom will probably go, I don't know if you can go to that.
I will consult my calendar.
I always found it valuable because it gives you the chance to see what's going on in the whole neighborhood.
Right,
And it's all three counties,
right.
Franklin, Oxford, and Amherst. And it's amazing how things that are happening somewhere else have an impact in the tri-county, so. I served on the board for 20 years. So it's kind of nice.
Thank you. MMA election results from the president, Mary Sabins. The vice president is James Gardner. EC members are Joe Beekman, David Sear, and Ivan McPike, mayor of town of Hampton. Thank all of them for their service. Maine Health Trust update, John.
Just, looks like the employee share, the board has voted to raise that price a little bit. So, out-of-pocket maximums for all 7 active plans is currently $63.50 for a single and $12,700 for a family. Effective January 1st, the in-network overall out-of-pocket maximum for all 3 plans will increase to $6,500 and $13,000 per family. So, up $150 on the single and $300 on the, that's just to announce that those are the changes to the, that they voted on for the health trust.
Thank you. Select board communications, anything?
Solar meeting schedule.
I'm sorry?
Solar meeting schedule committee?
So I can tell you that the dates that are best for Dennis and Dennis and, help me, Wes Dugan are Tuesdays.
Okay, let's schedule it.
Okay, so the next one will be But I can't do the 17th. 24th? I can't do 17th.
24th.
You good?
Sure.
You good, Dennis?
Good.
Yes?
While you're looking at calendars, is this going to come back after the attorney's legal opinion for a special meeting? Because the 23rd is too late, because it's 44 days, not 45, so I just want to check on that.
Okay. Are you good with the 24th? Okay, so would you, Tracy, the 24th, we're gonna have...
No, it would be.
Excuse me, we're gonna finish the solar one, and then I'll be right with you.
Okay, sorry.
Yep, no problem. Can we hold it here, in this room, or do you want us to ask the chief before we go down in the fire? On the 23rd?
What time?
Excuse me, 24th, Tuesday the 24th. There's no dot on it, so we can hold it here? 5 o'clock good for you, or is that too early?
Oh, it's fine.
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock here. All right, that's done. That committee consists of Steve Philbrick, Cindy Egan, Dennis Markey, and Wes Dugan. Open to the public for whoever wants to come talk about solar. Okay, so the other date, going to the lawyers, say that again, because I didn't.
I just want to check to see if you plan on scheduling a special meeting after John or Tracy gets attorney opinion on the petition. Because the next
No,
regular
bring it
meeting
back to the
is
Selectmen's
too late.
meeting. I don't think we need a special one, do we?
Because if we do choose to keep the petition, we can still call for a vote singularly, correctly?
No.
Am I correct?
No.
No,
Isn't that what it says in the petition process?
you have to have a meeting in order to vote on something.
Yeah, so what, you're saying prior to the 23rd?
Yes,
Yeah, I'd say no. The 23rd is our next meeting. Let's do it then.
it's too
You
late.
good with that, Cindy?
So that's, I just wanted to know that.
It's too late.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm just saying.
So Chris suggesting
No.
there's no one-day leeway?
No,
Okay.
there is no leeway, it's 45 days prior to, so that meeting would be too late in order to put it on the November 5th. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that,
Mhm.
that's why I asked, that's all.
Mhm.
I know somebody will go back and view the minutes and hear me say, I'm not too concerned about the November 5th date. I am concerned about doing this correctly. So I think we'll have it here the 23rd, and we'll go from there. Cool. Then everybody is not trying to get all their schedules to change seeing grandchildren, then no selectmen's meeting is that day. You good with that?
Absolutely. It's
Good.
true.
Donnie, you good with that?
Yeah.
Anything else on dates that I might have overlooked? Anything else on the select board communications? Okay. Thank you, everyone. We need to go into executive session. Will you make a motion or someone?
Somebody.
Thank you, Perry.
Got the same argument going on tomorrow night with my counsel.